Just a few years ago, AI felt like science fiction.
My father tried to teach me human emotions. They are difficult.
But now it's a part of our daily lives, changing faster than we ever thought possible.
Can you do this? You know how to do that?
While there's much optimism about AI's potential, there are also concerns about where it's being used. One of those concerns is therapy. Can an AI chatbot really understand feelings and replace a human therapist? And even if it can, is it a good idea?
I think a lot of people out there watching this are going to be thinking, really? Computer? Psychiatry? Come on.
In this video, we'll look at the positive and negative sides of AI in therapy by speaking to the creators of leading therapy chatbots and from therapists grappling with how this technology fits or clashes with their work.
Yeah, I'd punch the computer if it talked to me like that.
We may not be able to stop this AI revolution, but can we make it safer, fairer, and more caring? I spoke with 3 AI companies and 5 therapists to explore their perspectives on using AI in therapy. My first question, though, was what exactly do these AI companies do?
So Alomia is a web-based chatbot like ChatGPT or any other chatbot you've seen in the past with the goal of improving a patient's mental health. Again, it's not a licensed therapist. We're not trying to replace therapists, but it gives somebody the opportunity to talk about what they're going through, talk about what they're feeling, and then also get suggested exercises to hopefully relieve some of the symptoms they're feeling in the moment, and then also make them more prepared to face those stressful or anxious situations in the future.
Uber is an emotional health assistant. It's an AI programmed with cognitive behavioral therapy and other evidence-based therapy techniques to support users in their mental health. The goal of Uber is to support users' mental health in the short term during a conversation, and in the long term in reducing symptoms of mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, social anxiety, PTSD, and so on.
Right now, it's not as good as one-on-one licensed therapist to patient care, but it does have the potential to get as good, if not better, in the future.
We know the majority of people who need care are not getting it. There's never been a greater need, and the tools available have never been as sophisticated as they are now. And it's not about how can we get people in the clinic, it's how can we actually get some of these tools out of the clinic and into the hands of people.
Some say that AI entering the mental health field is the most significant innovation in the space since Sigmund Freud. They cite accessibility, affordability, and anonymity as big benefits. But here's where things get a little bit complicated. Therapy isn't just about convenience, it's about connection, and not everyone believes AI can deliver that.
A very, very important part of therapy is actually body language, expressions, pauses, what is not being said. And I think that kind of connection is human connection is very, very important in the kind of context of mental health. So I have trouble anticipating or thinking that, I might have a therapeutic alliance with my chatbot agent.
There's also something about vulnerability and practicing vulnerability with another person. I believe there's findings that say that when you're working with an AI, you're not as reluctant, that you're more willing to disclose certain things. And I think part of what makes therapy effective when working with a person is actually working through that fear to disclose things.
Also, I mentioned before that I see kids and I see adults. I speak differently to children than I do adults, right? And I don't know that AI can do that.
During my interviews with the therapists, several concerns about AI therapy chatbots were raised, including potential over-reliance, bias, lack of regulation, and privacy. However, one concern that came up repeatedly was the question of empathy.
Empathy is usually a step in therapeutic alliance, right? Fundamentals of therapeutic alliance is patient trusting the clinician and clinician empathizing with the patient and caring about and for the patient.
I think it's important to be real with people, to be genuine, but I think what it boils down to is really attending to somebody else's emotional and cognitive experience.
To know that you, the person you're talking with, honestly understands what you're talking about when you explain a trauma, for instance, or I'm not saying every therapist has gone through everything that their clients have, but we're human and we can connect to those feelings. You can connect on almost like a a soul level with your client, which there's no bot that's going to do that.
I don't know that it'll be exactly the same as a human interaction, but when I say I don't know, that doesn't mean I think necessarily it can't. I think it's too early to tell. You know, we're meeting through Zoom. You can't smell me right now. It feels different to have you in my presence. There are definitely disadvantages. There are also advantages. People have shorter commute times. I think the same thing is going to be true for interacting with an AI chatbot, for example.
You lose a lot. Like, there is a qualitative, obvious difference between being in the room across from you versus us even doing this on Zoom. I think this kind of atmosphere that in the office, it's a bubble, it's a sanctuary, it's a safe space. There's something about coming in, closing the door, having a little bit of humanity in this one-on-one connection. I do think opening up to a person is different than opening up to a program.
I asked the AI companies for their thoughts on this topic of empathy.
So I think before you can say whether an AI is empathetic or not, I think you have to define empathy. I think it's more about, does the human feel like the AI is empathetic? And then is that any different than the AI actually being empathetic? And I would argue no. So if you get the human to feel that the AI is empathetic, almost good enough for the interactions that we'll probably be having with the humans interact with Illumia.
With 5,400 users, so we followed them for at least 5 weeks to understand how was the effect of Uber and to try to establish some mechanism of action. And what we discovered is those micro therapy sessions compounding over time to provide a long-term benefit to the users. We monitor symptoms of depression by measuring PHQ-9 and also monitor symptoms of anxiety using GAD-7 or GAD-7. And both scales, they are clinically validated. Yeah, Uber is effective at reducing those symptoms.
One of the things that humans do that machines tend to not do is get tired. If my job is to listen to 500 hours of psychotherapy and I'm in hour 4, you're hoping that my rating in hour 4 is the same as my rating in hour 1. But what we know from doing this a long time is it's not. I get tired, I get irritated, I drift. The machine doesn't.
The pitfalls right now with human therapy is, again, humans are humans. So sometimes humans do ask questions that actually can be harmful to the patient. A common example is some therapists ask specific questions about PTSD survivors that actually may trigger the survivor even further. So again, non-intentional, but there are things that human therapists can do that would actually be harmful in a one-on-one human therapy session.
While the therapists did freely share their concerns with AI therapy chatbots treating patients, they also provided a balanced view of how they felt AI could be of help in the industry.
As a tool itself, I think it's useful. I think AI can absolutely expand accessibility and provide in the mornings, which is a time that we know, like early morning, we know that's a time at risk for suicide. Having something like an effective AI chatbot that could intervene there would be great.
Cognitive behavioral theory is basically, if you can change your thoughts, you're going to change your feelings, which in turn will change your behavior. Could AI help with that? Maybe. Like in an initial treatment plan, may be able to give you some suggestions or something, but it's not going to actually do what a therapist and a relationship can do with a client.
I certainly think it's really important to have face-to-face, real-world interactions with human beings. I also think there could be a lot of benefit in terms of just increasing access to utilizing AI in certain ways. We just have to make sure the AI is ready, and that requires, as I said, thoughtful considerations, research, regulations, etc.
I'm a big fan of using technology and like science as a way to kind of triangulate care. Like maybe there will be some of these kinds of apps, but there's also going to be a clinician involved, right? As someone who's an expert who knows how to follow guidelines and so on, and they can't see the patient every day or every week maybe for a variety of reasons, then maybe the patient can use some of these assisted technologies in that period as a way to keep track of things, which then both the patient and the clinician have access to that and they talk through it. So these can definitely be good supplements for care, and maybe that's a way to engage the teenagers or Gen Z in general.
So where do we go from here? AI isn't going anywhere. It's only becoming a bigger part of our lives. The important question is, can we guide it in the right direction?
I'm afraid that just by sticking our heads in the sand and saying nobody should ever use this is a bit naive, but there would have to be like a really strict code of ethics around it.
We do want to expand, but we want to expand intentionally. And again, when people are fearful of AI coming into health or clinical settings, they're thinking from the right angle is they don't want any harm to happen to the patient. And we agree with that. And so we want to make sure that we can understand chat first. There's actually some really amazing advancements coming in the way that AI can create audio interactions with humans. I've tested some of them. They actually feel really human. And so that coupled with technology for the patient, I think could be really valuable.
I mean, I think a lot of clinicians might be afraid of being replaced. They might be afraid of their rates being cut. I think from an ethical perspective, I don't want us to use AI when it could be harmful to a person, but from an ethical perspective, I don't want us to deny access if something could be really highly effective and it can increase access to people who can't afford it. I don't think we can put the cat back in the bag in terms of we're not going to stop AI. There need to be guardrails. There needs to be the sort of capability to dial things back quickly if problems exist after we've already thought they were safe and then we try something and something goes wrong. How do we then in fact rein it in? And I think you want to have those kinds of safety precautionary plans in place before you roll things out.
I think we'll need an AI that will be by our side. And Uber is that. Uber is a companion that's by your side. It's there to provide the support that you need to help you thrive.
Like, I think it's good to be open-minded about including AI into our community. But that's a separate question from replacing what we have been doing so far, especially in the context of mental health, with these very, at this stage, very primitive kind of bots. But also we should be careful about how we are using it and always ask the question, why is it being pushed in this context but not in this other context? Why are we trying to replace therapists with AI? Just wait a second. And I think it's important to realize the kind of larger context of these worries, which again is like financial.
This process has been both eye-opening and fascinating, and I'm incredibly grateful to everyone who supported me along the way. While I personally don't see AI as a replacement for a therapist, I can't draw a conclusion for anyone else. That's a decision only you can make. How do you feel about using AI? Does it excite you? Does it make you feel uneasy? If you had to work alongside AI, would you hesitate? The choice is yours, but above all, stay curious and always do your own research.